Hello gamers, Maniac here with GamingSuccess.net. As promised, doing a next podcast. We've kind of stepped up podcast production over here because we have a backlog of topics that people have been asking us to talk about. And basically, since I've been limited by other projects I can work on for the time being, if podcasts are what you guys want to watch, I have no problem producing them. And please, I have no problem. If you have any ideas for future podcasts, some people have actually asked for podcast sequels, and I have been working on those as well, or planning those out. The very good reason why is because in a lot of cases, I'll do a podcast and then 2 or 3 more games in the series will come out and people are going to want me to talk about them. I understand that, and I have been considering working on it for quite some time now. And so that might be in the pipeline. But I promised you guys after the Pokemon podcast that I was going to be doing a podcast about Quantum Break. And here it is. This is our podcast on Quantum Break. For those of you guys who are unfamiliar with our Game Access podcast format, this is an unscripted series where we talk about a specific franchise in the video game industry. How it's branched out, how it's affected me, the history of the franchise itself, the game's impact on either myself or on the gaming industry as a whole, and then I usually close up with what I believe the future of the franchise is. And this is not the first time I've ever talked about a game that only had one actual game release. But it's not that often I actually talk about a game that only had one game release, or on a podcast format. Usually I'll have like 2 or 3, or in the case of podcast, quite a few. The truth is that Quantum Break left such an impact on me after playing it on the Xbox One. It immediately just went up to, I had to talk about it. I just had so much I wanted to say about this game and share my thoughts about it with you, and also hear your thoughts about it. So post a comment about if you played the game, what you thought about it. We are planning on having more Quantum Break related content in the time ahead. Streaming has been put on hold for right now. At least Xbox streaming has been put on hold for right now because I'm currently having technical issues streaming on the Xbox One using the beta operating system that I've got. So that's why I haven't been able to continue streaming the game. I know it's been requested of me to at least stream Act 2, and I plan to do so, but unfortunately technical issues seem to be preventing that from happening. So without further ado, let's get started talking about this podcast and talking about this great franchise. Quantum Break was first announced at the Microsoft Xbox One official reveal event. For those of you who might remember this event, it took place about a month or 2 before E3 2013, if memory serves. It was about 2 or 3 months after the first reveal of the PlayStation 4. So Sony came out first. They revealed their PlayStation 4 back in February, a whole bunch of cool games for it, and said that they'd be showing more content for the PlayStation 4 by E3 that year. Eventually it got to a point where people were like looking at Microsoft like, okay, you're going to show your 360 successor? And about a month before E3, Microsoft finally announced it was going to unveil their next Xbox, the future of the Xbox as they called it at the time. And they did a presentation where, in their defense, they did actually show a game console. Sony did not actually show the final game console form factor at their original PS4 reveal. They only showed the controller and the camera. And but Microsoft did have a final form factor, a final release, bundle that they were ready to announce. No price point, but they oddly enough opened it by not showing any games. When Sony came out and they showed the PlayStation 4 for the first time, they did mention game streaming, but at the very least that was game. That's at least game related. This console will play games, whether you can stream them or play them on, play new games. This is a console for playing games, which was important. That's why a lot of people thought that the Sony conference was good. The Microsoft conference, on the other hand, was all touting, at least when it started for the first 20 or 30 minutes of the conference, if memory serves, going on and on about This thing will be able to plug into your TV tuner, and you'll be able to watch games and Blu-rays on it. We've been able to watch Blu-rays on, Blu-ray movies or movies in general on a game console since the days of the PlayStation 2. This is not some new feature. Okay, you've got a DVR. Our consoles, even at this point, had Netflix and Amazon support. These are not huge features. Okay, you've got voice control. Again, for doing this. The Xbox 360 does this. You've got to connect. Okay, you say you've improved it. Okay. But, you're not showing any games that take advantage of it, just system features. Then they came out and they announced a Halo television series, which still has not seen the light of day. And no, that is not the Halo Nightfall series. This was a separate series. This was a different team, a different series. And it is not Halo Nightfall. And but there were no games for at least the first half hour, if memory serves. All of a sudden, after another presentation was going on about more functionality and features that were not game related about the Xbox One, Microsoft showed a first trailer. And that trailer had a Remedy logo in front of it. That immediately got my attention. In fact, I had to call up some of my good friends and tell them to put the stream on once I saw that Remedy logo actually hit the internet. Remedy, that you may know, is one of the, in my opinion, one of the best independent game production companies in the world right now. These are the guys that created the Max Payne franchise. They made the first 2 Max Payne games. They made Alan Wake, one of my favorite games on the Xbox 360. And when I saw that they were making an Xbox One title, I was immediately, that got my interest. That immediately presented an interest to me. And so at that point, I started paying really close attention to what was going to follow that Remedy logo. And all of a sudden, we saw this, what appeared to be a live-action sequence involving a woman and her child might have some psychic powers. And then it cut to a boat colliding with a bridge, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. And the tagline was, "Time is the fire in which we burn," and the title appeared, Quantum Break. And I just screamed in excitement. It wasn't Alan Wake 2. I was kind of hoping that, I'll admit this, I was kind of hoping that was going to be Alan Wake 2's announcement. It wasn't. But needless to say, that very short teaser trailer impressed me. A game, Remedy always showed themselves to be incredible storytellers. And the fact that it opened with a live-action sequence did not really bother me that much because Remedy had used live-action images and live-action footage in some of their previous games. Max Payne used live-action images that, got Photoshop filters and stuff added to them to do the graphic novels. For Alan Wake's American Nightmare, they had to use live-action sequence actors to do the cinematics for that game because they said that it was actually faster for them to get the actors to do it than it was for them to render the CGI. They could have the game out sooner if they used live-action actors, and I understood that. And I thought it worked pretty well. It matched up very well with the Alan Wake franchise. So I did not question that decision. So immediately, this trailer blew me away, and here I am sitting down and I'm like, "Did you see that?" My friend's like, "Yeah, they saw it. It looks amazing. Can't wait to see this on a Remedy." I was ready to pick up. At that point, that trailer was what made me want to get an Xbox day one. Nothing else. No, I can't cite another game off the top of my head that more so made me want to get an Xbox One on the first day just so I could make sure that I had the chance to play this Quantum Break. Quantum Break was the reason I picked up an Xbox One. Obviously, I have picked up other games for it since, but Quantum Break was the reason I got an Xbox One day one. I will say that. So needless to say, all eyes started becoming glued to E3. But there was a small yet vocal minority of people, particularly Alan Wake fans, that were very angry at Remedy for making Quantum Break as opposed to Alan Wake 2. So much so that Remedy actually had to produce a video for their YouTube channel, where basically hosted or narrated by Remedy's writer Sam Lake, to apologize for not making Alan Wake 2 next. They offered the game at a discounted rate on Xbox 360. Then they offered the PC versions of Alan Wake and Alan Wake American Nightmare through the Humble Bundle with a lot of extra bonus content as like their contrition or something like that for that. And I thought that was very nice of them to do. So immediately I was thinking to myself, Quantum Break still interested me. I wasn't of the mind. I mean, while I was appreciating, Alan Wake, I was kind of upset that there was not an Alan Wake 2. Personally, for me, I figured let them do Quantum Break and then they'll do an Alan Wake 2 or something next. I have no problem with that. Quantum Break looks very interesting. It looks like it's going to take advantage. I'm curious to see how it takes advantage of the Xbox One's hardware and feature set. That's really what excited me about this. I saw all these cool features that Microsoft was touting about the Xbox One, and I thought, wow, okay, they're doing a live-action TV series. They're doing a video game. It'd be really cool to see how these kind of features kind of interact and with each other. How this system, and since the game is going to be, at least at the time, it was Xbox One exclusive, they could design it specifically for the Xbox One's hardware. Those things like you could optimize. You have more time for optimization. You have more time to literally and they could take. I thought at the time they could take advantage of the Kinect because at the time the Kinect was being bundled with all the Xbox One games, all the Xbox One systems, and I was interested to see how the live action sequence or the live action sequences would work with the Kinect, or would the game have Kinect functionality, all that kind of stuff. Turned out in hindsight that really none of that stuff happened, but from what I've read in the research, which I'll talk about later, those were all certainly proposed ideas both on Microsoft and on Remedy's end. So I wasn't that far off in at least assuming that a lot of these things at the time could have been worked on or worked out. So we were coming up on E3 2013, and all eyes were on Sony and Microsoft to deliver new information about their newest consoles. And Microsoft struck first, and they showed a whole bunch of exclusive games that were going to be coming to the system by the end of the year. Dead Rising 3, for example, which impressed me. Rise, Son of Rome, which also impressed me. They showed the Forza 5 game. Loco Cycle. I think Loco Cycle got a showing. But for me, what I was really looking forward to was to see a preview for Quantum Break. That was what I was there for. That was what I really wanted to see preview. And Microsoft did not disappoint. They did show an extended trailer for Quantum Break. It was the first full trailer that they showed. We got to see a bit more of the action and gameplay of the title at that point. And we found out, obviously it was going to be Xbox One exclusive. Seeing this, it just looked to me like just Remedy craft. I mentioned before I had played Max Payne and Alan Wake before. This company knows their action games. They not only can deliver fantastic stories, but they can deliver fantastic action and production values. And from what I got to see in that E3 2013 trailer, I had my pre-order down. I was ready to play this game. I was so excited for it. And unfortunately, after that point, the game kind of went a bit dark. The Xbox One launched, and it did not do as much as it should have. I don't really want to turn this podcast into a discussion about the merits or shortfalls of the Xbox One. But when it comes to Quantum Break, unfortunately, this is a discussion that kind of needs to be at least touched upon. The PlayStation 4 came out before the Xbox One did. And it was very clear that after Sony did their announcements at E3 2013, right after Microsoft did, that Sony were the ones who were dictating to Microsoft how this generation was going to go and not the other way around. Most gamers were not interested in the Kinect, for example. and Microsoft eventually would have to backpedal on that. By the next year, they had decided that they weren't going to bundle the Kinect anymore. Although they would continue to support it, they just basically did not. They were not bundling it. The Xbox One because of that, they also dropped the price to price match the PlayStation 4 system. I don't know if this really impacted development on Quantum Break, but like I said before, I have done research on Quantum Break's development, particularly with the Secret History of Time Travel hardcover collector's guide that was released by Prima at the same time that Quantum Break was out. And there were a lot of people, at least during Quantum Break's earlier development, that were very interested in having Kinect functionality added to Quantum Break. And having played the final version of Quantum Break, there is no Kinect functionality in there other than just the regular Xbox functionality, like game streaming and stuff like that. You know, things you would normally use for the Kinect for the operating system, like the ability to take screenshots or DVR video commands and stuff like that, all works. But there's no Kinect specific functionality in the final version of Quantum Break. And I think that maybe that had an impact on Quantum Break's development. I don't know for sure. But I do know for a fact that Microsoft did make a reveal announcement that they weren't going to be showing Quantum Break at E3 2014. Quantum Break would be shown next at Gamescom, actually, which was originally a Gamescom for me. Obviously, I don't live in Europe. I never been to Gamescom before. But for me, Gamescom really started making a name for themselves when I started hearing cool information about games that Sony was announcing at Gamescom. In particular, games like Rain, which was a downloadable title that looked absolutely phenomenal, and I ended up loving that game quite a bit on the PlayStation 3 once I ended up picking it up for myself. And I think Until Dawn was originally first announced at Gamescom as as a PlayStation 3 exclusive Move game. I know, right? Go figure on that one. But that was like the last time I had really heard about Gamescom or had watched any Gamescom content. Needless to say, when Remedy announced that they were going to show Quantum Break at Gamescom, I literally took the morning off to watch the Gamescom press events to see if they were going to announce any content about Quantum Break during their show. And this is not a regret, even in the slightest, because that was an incredible Gamescom show from both Sony and Microsoft's end. And this was at the moment where we got to see, I believe Gamescom 2014 was the bridge sequence, if I remember correctly. Just an amazing, we got to see the full bridge sequence. And wow, that really blew me away. Now, for those of you who haven't seen that demo, I'll try to break it down for you at least a little bit. They showed a full segment of gameplay, which I believe, if memory serves, takes up about... It's gameplay from Act 4. It's the bridge sequence from Act 4. And true to what I saw, almost all of it ended up in the final version of the game. It was an incredible sequence where we got to see our hero, Jack Joyce, explain that they got to see these time experiments and things like that, and that he has powers now, which we had also seen in E3 2013, obviously, and what he can, but we could finally see what he could do with these powers. And you could stop time, you could use time as a shield, you could speed up, you could attack from behind, you could trick the AI into assuming you were in one place or another, almost like the Flash, because you could move so fast. Just amazing sequence where he's trying to basically scale and cross a bridge. And that sequence was far too short, if you ask me. That was, I think, one of the highlights of that year's Gamescom, that sequence. It was so much fun to watch that. And I remember, I mean, don't get me wrong, that was a Gamescom that actually had a lot of great stuff that was also shown. The PT demo was first announced. Metal Gear Solid 5 was shown. A lot of cool stuff was shown at that year's Gamescom, and so because of that, I was really excited. That had a lot to live up to, and I think it held its own. And shortly after that, Remedy and Microsoft released an extended version of that demo, where the majority of of that particular demo we got to see content was for action, action using the powers. But that wasn't all that you could do in Quantum Break. There was also time-based platforming in Quantum Break. Now, I specifically remembered playing games like Uncharted and stuff like that. And when they finally released the extended version of the bridge sequence, basically the sequence that happened afterwards, where Jack Joyce would have to navigate his way through a moment where time would literally have stopped, I was getting Uncharted vibes, and that was not in a bad way, because I really liked Uncharted. I really liked, Uncharted to me always felt that, and I probably talked about this in my Uncharted podcast, but Uncharted to me always felt like it always broke up the gameplay by going back and forth between puzzles, action, and platforming. And here was Quantum Break that would do all that and with story and exploration and everything. So while they didn't show anything really from the TV series or make any major announcements about the TV series yet, that would come later, I was still excited to hear any information about this. I was still holding up hope there was going to be some Kinect functionality in the game, even though we really didn't see any in any of the demos previously. When we got to see but we did get a demo, obviously, from just how incredible the CG cinematics looked. And most people, when they looked at those cinematics, all assumed, oh, those were pre-rendered. Oh, those had to have been pre-rendered. There's no way that those sequences could be possible with that type of CGI. It has to be pre-rendered CGI because it looks so realistic. And Remedy actually showed a behind-the-scenes sequence where they actually showed how they made the CGI sequence, not the CGI, but the cutscene sequences look so realistic because they were doing full facial capture using like scanners, laser scanners or infrared scanners or something. It wasn't just dots. They weren't doing dots anymore. They were doing full facial capture and transmitting that to their digital actors when they were doing gameplay. And that impressed me quite a bit. I didn't see too many games that were actually going to that level of detail. So that made me very happy to see. Probably the worst part about this was the wait. The wait was just absolutely excruciating. I believe Remedy originally announced that they were expecting Quantum Break to come out in 2015, which was about, give or take, 2 years after the release of the Xbox One. I still have my Xbox One. I was playing it. I was playing mostly the exclusives on it. And other games coming out for it, like Halo 5 Guardians, obviously, and Master Chief. So there was plenty for me to play on the Xbox One, at least for the exclusives. But most of my multi-platforms I was playing on the PlayStation 4. And I was getting a little bit, that I had to wait so long. Like I said, Quantum Break was the first game that was announced for the Xbox One. And check the timestamp on this release for the podcast. It only came out like last month. So it was a long wait. So I kind of had to I kind of shifted attention to some other things and some other games because not after the Gamescom demo, and while that was incredibly impressive, they didn't really follow up with a constant release of content. It was just that Gamescom demo. Remedy announced probably a couple of months afterwards, a year afterwards, essentially, that they were going to do another showing at Gamescom 2015. And that this was going to be a big deal. This was going to be a really big reveal. Now, I was just as excited about this as ever, but I kind of felt like that announcement really had to have come because they didn't show any, I was kind of hoping for an E3 reveal. I really wanted to see, for me, E3 is the major event, for when it comes to video games. I was kind of hoping to see some Quantum Break, reveal or announcement at E3 2015, but Quantum Break wasn't even shown. They showed other stuff at 2015. Which, well, I understand that. I was really hoping for at least some Quantum Break. But they decided instead to show something at Gamescom 2015. And when Sam Lake took stage, right next to him was the venerable actor Shawn Ashmore. That's right. Quantum Break had a new actor as the main character. And it was Shawn Ashmore, who many of you probably remember playing Bobby Drake, otherwise known as the Iceman in the X-Men movies. I remembered him as playing Jake in Animorphs, the Nickelodeon television series based on the young adult book series, basically. I loved Animorphs back when it was out. I can't remember exactly how old I was when Animorphs came out on television, but I really liked that series quite a bit. And I never read the book series, although I was familiar with it. I thought Shawn Ashmore, when I first saw him in the first X-Men movie, I thought it was great that they cast him because I figured, oh, I remember him from Animorphs. It's great that they cast him. And for every other X-Men movie, even though most of his class got recast in like X-Men 2, X-Men 2 and X-Men 3, Shawn Ashmore was this, they kept him around, and I thought that was just great. So here he was, I had that was a nerd moment for me. That was truly my fan, that was a fanboy moment for me, seeing him up on stage with Sam. Basically, and essentially they presented a sequence from Quantum Break. This was, I think, a sequence that ended up at the end of Act 2, or towards the end of Act 2, not the end of Act 2, but no, I take it back, towards the middle part of it, basically in the middle of Act 2. And what essentially they showed off was some of the technology they allowed for how time could fast forward and, how you could see flashbacks in this game and how story moments would show up. And I thought it looked great. I thought the action was good, but the sequence for me was just too short, at least the gameplay sequence. I felt it was a very brief demo on stage. I heard that there was a longer demo that was shown to the press, at Gamescom event, at the Gamescom event on the show floor. But I don't think that footage ever actually was released online, which is very unfortunate because I would have liked to have seen that footage. I know there were previews about it, but for me, and I say this as a writer, the writer, I wasn't the one to write it. I would have loved to have been one of the people to write one of those reviews, or previews, I should say. I would have loved to have been that person. Since I wasn't, I do write previews myself. I am a gaming journalist myself. It's hard for me to read other people's work about content that I know I could have written myself. No offense to any writers. I love reading work about stuff that I wouldn't have written. I love that, but I can't read previews for games that I wish that I could have previewed myself. But that wasn't all they showed at the Gamescom press event for the Xbox. They also announced that they actually showed another trailer, a second trailer, which was entirely in live action. This was a teaser trailer for the Quantum Break television series. Now, we had known that there was going to be a Quantum Break television series since Quantum Break was first announced. But up until this point, we really didn't see anything specific about it. The original, teaser trailer from the Xbox One reveal notwithstanding. By this point, there was some major issues with, the live action TV series. By this point, it had been 2 or 3 years since Microsoft had made all those announcements that they were going to be basically launching what was essentially going to be an Xbox channel that Xbox 360 and Xbox One users were going to have, and they'd be able to download and stream content, exclusive content that you wouldn't normally be able to get on services like Netflix and on Hulu and stuff, or on your cable provider. And so by that point, Microsoft had pretty much backtracked on everything, on all of those promises. Microsoft had released content, but they didn't follow through on any of it. They released the very good Atari Game Over documentary, which I totally enjoyed. Although some people have argued that a lot of it was kind of probably dramatized. I still found it a very enjoyable documentary. And we'll rewatch it all the time. And they also produced a pretty decent feature-length documentary about the history of Halo 2 and stuff, which I also thought was a really good documentary to watch. Both of those are still available for free to just download and stream on the Xbox Movies and TV app. So if you want to check those out for yourself, I totally recommend them. But it was very clear that there was not going to be any more content out of Microsoft other than that content. Microsoft had shut down their TV production division. Why? I have no idea. Maybe, I don't know why Microsoft would go to all the trouble to start all that stuff and then just shut it all down. Right? That logic just kind of escapes me. But by this point, the Quantum Break TV series had already been produced. It was already ready to go. it was already produced. So we were good there. And so what essentially happened was that Microsoft announced that they were going to release the Quantum Break series alongside with the game, and that you essentially only be able to watch the series by playing the game, but actions that you took in the game would affect the series, and you'd be able to see the consequences of your actions. Now, having grown up playing, PC adventure titles and even PC FMV games, I felt a twinge of nostalgia for this. But we hadn't really seen live action sequences in video games. A lot of reviewers to this day, in fact, I'm thinking of you, Angry Joe, in specific, and I like Angry Joe a lot. I like his reviews a lot. But there are a lot of reviewers, that are just completely against FMV in titles. They're just utterly and completely against it. And it was clear to me that didn't really apply in this case because Quantum Break was like a special exception. Quantum Break to me felt like this was something that they were doing. And I was fine with them doing a TV series because I knew that Sam Lake was going to be the one who write it. So that also was like, because I knew Sam Lake was one of the best writers of our time. Yes, Sam, that is, you can quote me, everybody can quote me on that. The work of Sam Lake is some of the best writing of our time. I loved, the story of Max Payne. I loved, the dialogue and story from, Alan Wake. I knew that Quantum Break was going to have an incredible story because I knew that Sam Lake was working on it. So just the fact that it didn't matter to me if it was going to be delivered either by live action actors or CG actors or in-game, I didn't care. However they wanted to present it to me, I was willing to go with it. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here and start talking about the lead up to release of this game. As I said before, by this point, we knew that the game was going to be coming out in 2016, but we didn't know when. However, it was looking pretty likely that the game was going to be coming out in early 2016 as opposed to late 2016. So, while it was a delay, it wasn't that much of a delay, if you know what I mean. I was still really looking forward to it, though, and my interest had been totally piqued at this point. I was ready for all the tidbits I could possibly imagine coming from Remedy. And Remedy capped off 2015 with a little bit of like a little Easter egg type movie with Sam Sam making an announcement about there's going to be a Alan Wake Easter egg and stuff like that in Quantum Break, and I thought that was great. A couple months earlier, Remedy had made the announcements and started revealing content that they had produced when they were thinking that they were going to be making Alan Wake 2 instead of Quantum Break. And a lot of that content, once it was released on the internet, Polygon released it, if I remember correctly, just made Alan Wake fans go absolutely berserk. The footage looked incredible. They wanted an Alan Wake game. They wanted this game to basically be put in production as soon as possible. Hopefully as soon as Quantum Break was over. They wanted, the Alan Wake fans came back out of the woodwork and they immediately started demanding Alan Wake 2. And they're still welcome to. If you want Alan Wake 2, there's only one company you really have to complain to in order to get it. And that's Microsoft. Complain to anybody at Microsoft that you want Alan Wake 2. Trust me, they'll listen eventually. So that was one of the components about what was going on at Remedy at the time. But the game was pretty close to release, and Microsoft was starting to ramp up their end of what their production was going to be. Unfortunately, there really wasn't that much. There was some really cool stuff that they had done, some very unique stuff that they had done, but nothing that really got me into it, nothing that really affected me, unfortunately. I'm going to talk about a couple of the things really quick. Otherwise, we're going to be here forever before I even start talking about the game itself. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about the kind of stuff that Microsoft themselves were doing for the marketing standpoint. They released a live-action trailer starring Shawn Ashmore at the cemetery. They called it the cemetery trailer, I mean. It was a cool trailer where Shawn Ashmore was, at a cemetery, sees his brother's grave, and he's stopped by a whole bunch of security, and he outwits the security. Really cool sequence. Shawn Ashmore's awesome. Unfortunately, that scene doesn't appear in the game. It's just a scene specifically so for me, I didn't really feel a connection to it because the sequence was just not in the final version of the game. Another thing Microsoft did that I thought was actually really cool was they started releasing these fake facade storefronts for fake restaurants that were caught in temporal stutters. There was a Quantum Burger I heard about, and I think it was in Canada or something. I also heard about a Quantum Coffee place, although unfortunately footage of this place, I haven't really been able to find footage or images of the place online. But there was a small organization that took a look at the Quantum Burger place, and I'm really appreciative. Unfortunately, I don't remember which organization it was. It might have been CVG. I can't remember who it was. Like, I think it was Computer and Video Games, but don't quote me on that. But they took a look at the Quantum. They took a look at the Quantum Burger facade themselves, and as far as I'm concerned, that place was a work of art. Unfortunately, it was out completely opposite. I couldn't check it out because of where it was located. You know, this is very common for me. It's like, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this, and it's a 6-hour plane ride from where I'm standing. And yeah. So it would have been nice if I had the chance to go check it out. I would have loved to have checked it out myself. I appreciate the people who did and posted up the comment and footage about it, but it was just one location in one place, and it wasn't even remotely near me. So that was a bit of a downer. But it looked pretty cool. Great attention to detail on it too. There was also the announcement that made a lot of people angry and happy at the exact same time. And if I talk about it too much, we're going to be here for a while. So I'll only kind of, unfortunately, I can't even touch upon it briefly because there's really a lot to talk about. But I'll try not to go too much. I'll try not to devote the entire rest of the podcast to this. But at or around the same time that Microsoft started ramping up their information about Quantum Break, their marketing for Quantum Break, I think it was around the same time that the Cemetery trailer was released. Microsoft announced that Quantum Break was not just going to be coming to the Xbox, but it was also going to be coming to Windows 10 PCs. Now, everyone, and I remember this, it never ceased. When the announcement first came that Quantum Break was going to be an Xbox One exclusive, not a day passed when someone complained to Remedy that they wanted a PC version. There was not a single day that passed. For at least the entire development time, at least somebody, but mostly it was more than one, at least somebody every day had complained, where's the PC version, where's the PC version, where's the PC version? Most of them said we are not, a lot of people, and I really think this is kind of unfortunate, a lot of people were basically saying that they were asking for a PC version not because they felt like they would get better graphics or better performance out of it, but because they simply were not interested in picking up an Xbox One under any circumstances. They wanted the game on like the PC or the PS4. I don't know what to say to the kind of people that I don't know what to say to them. I really don't. I used to be a PC gamer. I really did. But after 2007, when the publisher started going crazy with PC DRM and stuff, I basically just moved to the consoles. I felt the consoles provided a better experience than the PC did. And I still hold that opinion because I think that the PC still does this DRM that's very anti-consumer, with very few exceptions. There are a couple of publishers that won't allow it, but they're a minority, and usually that's with re-releases and stuff like that, or indie titles, and that's fine, But when it comes to AAA releases day and date, I'm sorry, but I will pick up a console version because I at least know that there's not going to be DRM on it, and I can play. I have better rights to play the game. Basically, that's how I feel. And I was happy for everybody when they made the announcement that I was certainly happy for everybody that when the announcement came that there was going to be a Windows 10 version, but I felt like there was still a bit of a backlash from it. I felt there was a huge backlash, probably more of a backlash than there should have been for all the amount of people that were demanding a Windows 10 version. I'm sorry, for a PC version in general. The fact that Microsoft said that they were going to be releasing it through the Windows Store for Windows 10 users. And by the way, Windows 10 upgrades were free for anybody that was using Windows 7 or Windows 8. This just, I don't know, it just felt like, to me personally, a lot of these PC owners were just not willing to meet Microsoft halfway. But Microsoft did a lot of things for the consumers. They really did. They allowed anybody that purchased the game through the Xbox Digital Store within a certain amount of time, but anybody who pre-ordered the game on the Xbox Store to get a PC code free of charge. That I thought was great. I hadn't seen something like that, at least not recently. But I definitely remember that being a big reason why I picked up the PS3 version of Portal 2 when that came out, because I knew that a PC version of our code for the PC version of Portal 2 was going to be included in the PS3 version. So I thought that was great that Microsoft was willing to do that, was offered download codes. I wish more retailers, unfortunately not too many retailers participated in this, at least not in the US. I think Microsoft stores in the country did offer that for anybody who picked up Quantum Break at retail with pre-orders. But unfortunately, there's no Microsoft stores where I live, so that was prohibitive. That wasn't a big, that wasn't something I could take advantage of. I wanted a physical copy, but I heard a lot of people were had gotten copies from purchasing it through the Xbox store, and I thought was pretty cool. Another thing that they did was for anybody, whether they picked up a retail or a digital copy, would get a free copy download for Alan Wake. On the the code would work on both the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One. And this to me also felt like, are they trying to drum up some Alan Wake nostalgia for Alan Wake 2 or something? Or Alan Wake now has a bit of a cult following. So, and I know so I thought that was kind of really cool that they would not only include Quantum Break with any copy of Quantum Break, but they would also include a full copy of Alan Wake that would be able to be played on a 360 or an Xbox One. I thought that was great. They announced they were bringing Alan Wake to the Xbox One, so anybody who had either a disc or a digital download copy already of Alan Wake would be able to play it at around the same time that Quantum Break would be coming out. And they offered digital download codes for anybody who pre-ordered Quantum Break to get a free copy for digital download of the Xbox 360 version of Alan Wake's American Nightmare, but that was only for pre-orders. So I thought there were a lot of cool incentives to pick up Quantum Break. You essentially would be getting as many as, let's say, 3 games that you might not have already had. I thought that was a fantastic deal. Just awesome, I thought. You could, and even if you bought it digitally within enough time, you could hypothetically got not only the Xbox One version of Quantum Break, you would get the PC version of Quantum Break, you would get an Xbox 360 and an Xbox One copy of, just amazing. A really good deal, I thought. I think more, game developers need to do this, need to follow this lead, because that's really cool when you have a AAA title like that. You gave value to it to pick it up immediately. So the marketing push was going on, but there was a huge blowback. There was a huge blowback from the PC release. There were a couple of people who were saying that they were angry at Microsoft and Remedy for releasing a PC version, or just even offering a PC version, even though everybody else had been asking them to do it for like 4 years previously. And then there were some people that were very angry that they had to upgrade their systems to Windows 10. Having been a person who, upgraded to Windows 10 day one, it's fine. It really is. It's fine. I had Windows 7. I upgraded it to Windows 10. I wanted to use some of the Xbox functionality for Windows 10. It's fine. It is. It's fine. It's not Windows 8. In fact, if you're using Windows 8, I would recommend for Windows 7, maybe, some people prefer Windows 7, all right. But if you're using Windows 8, upgrade to 10. Please, I recommend unless you're using some custom software that's incompatible. I think that FileMaker, like FileMaker 13, if I remember correctly, is incompatible with Windows 10. You have to upgrade to, I think FileMaker 14 or something to get a Windows 10 version. So that I could understand. But everything else, I really don't regret making that upgrade. Now, before I start talking about the game itself and posting my thoughts about the game, there is one other thing I kind of have to touch upon really quickly with you guys. Some other personal information, other personal events that happened to me around the same time Quantum Break was just about to be released. Microsoft and Tor Books announced that they were going to be releasing a novelized version of Quantum Break called Quantum Break Zero State in the time leading up to the release of Quantum Break. Now, this is really nothing new to video games in general. There have been novelized versions of video games coming back all the way. I can think of reading the original Halo books and stuff like that. The Fall of Reach, First Strike, The Flood. I loved those books so much. I loved reading those books. I have such fond memories of reading them. And here was an announcement that there was going to be a novelized version of the Quantum Break game called Quantum Break Zero State. Unfortunately, once they made that announcement, there wasn't really much of a follow-up about it. Just that the game, that the book was coming. It was going to be released the same day as the game itself. But there was really no other information. I actually had a lot of questions about how I felt about Quantum Break itself and about how I felt about Zero State. I really had a lot of questions. The information that was being provided in the press release was insufficient to me. So I tried contacting Remedy about it on their forums, and I didn't hear anything back about it. And I wrote a little piece on my website just announcing that the book was going to be coming, but that unfortunately I couldn't get any further information about it. Fast forward another day or two, the book's author, I am not kidding, Cam Rogers. The actual book, the Quantum Break Zero State's author is Cam Rogers. And he actually contacted me through my website saying, yeah, I'm the author, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might actually have about the book itself. After I verified that this was in fact the actual Cam Rogers, and I did do my own verification of that, after I verified that the person contacted me through my website was in fact the real Cam Rogers, I asked him for an interview, which he graciously accepted. And I have to thank him again. I know I've thanked him previously for this, but Cam was such a great guy to work with. He really was. He was so gracious and so polite and so respectful. And here I am, just some guy running a website out of his own pocket with, who am I? Who am I? I got a YouTube channel. I got, it's like, who am I? And I was just a guy interested in the book, and I had a lot of questions about the book. I wanted to read the book. I was a fan of Quantum Break and Remedy, and here was Cam basically willing to not only provide me an interview, but also he ended up hooking me up with his publisher to get a review copy of the book sent to me. Wow, just wow! And I ended up getting a review copy sent to me, a paperback version. For Quantum Break Zero State over the course of, prior to the book's actual physical release. This was before even Quantum Break had come out. And I was told, review the book. I was basically told, please review the book. And so I had conducted my interview with Cam, and we were still in the process of editing it. So we were holding off on the interview, but at the same time I was working on the interview. I was also reading Zero State, and I had a lot of questions about it, but I read it, and I was very happy with it. I enjoyed the book quite a bit. Obviously, if you've read I have a full review on my website, gameaccess.net. If you wish to hear my thoughts about it, spoiler free. I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed reading it. I thought it was very well written. I thought he did his research. I thought Cam did his research when he was writing it, particularly about this area, because Quantum Break, let's face it, takes place in a fictionalized version of, I think it takes place in the Northeast, like a fictionalized town in the Northeast of the United States. And, well, that's kind of where I live in the Northeast U.S., and so I felt like Cam, who is, I believe, an Australian by birth, working for a Finnish development company, did his research. I was really happy he heard about some of the stuff that takes place over here, some of the businesses that are over here and stuff. So props to him for that. I don't want to do a review of the book here because we're not going to talk about that. Needless to say, I enjoyed it. And if you want to read my full thoughts about it, about reading it, you can check on my website about that. Eventually, I did get the interview with Cam published. It's a very good interview. It's also on my website if you want to check that out as well. I got that out before the game came out. Game comes out. I picked up the game early that morning. Released the Quantum Break review for the Quantum Break Zero State review for the on my website. And I sat down and finally, at least I thought, was going to start to play Quantum Break on the Xbox One. I picked up Quantum Break the morning it came out. There was no midnight release for it, at least not in my neck of the woods. maybe I should have sprung for the digital copy of it as opposed to a physical one, but in my defense, I really did want that steelbook that GameStop was giving away. So I ended up getting a retail copy. So I pick it up that morning, and thankfully, before I even went out that morning to pick up the game, Microsoft activated the DLC for the television series. Now, for those of you who don't know much about the DLC package for Quantum Break, I'll just break it down really quickly. They couldn't fit the entire 4-episode television series actually onto the game's Blu-ray disc. It just didn't fit. There was at least 75 gigabytes of data for the series with all the video files in 1080p, and even compressed, it was still that big. And so Microsoft decided to do two options. One, allow users to stream it via like Netflix, basically. Or two, they could download it as a free DLC package. While they did offer the DLC for anybody that pre-ordered the game digitally, and the DLC was offered free of charge, there was no charge for it. They didn't actually offer it to retail users until the game officially released. The only people that could actually pre-download it was anybody who purchased it digitally. So I wasn't able to start downloading the video DLC because I knew for a fact, with experience from how bad it was to try to stream one of the Halo TV series after a Halo game was released on the Halo channel, I knew that it was going to be a bad experience to try to download, to try to stream this series. So I decided instead to pre-download the DLC package and play the game after the DLC package was downloaded. So I go to the store. I'm downloading in the background. I go to the store. I got the disc, no problem, and the download is still going on. I'm sitting on a 105 megabit connection here, and it must have taken at least 18 hours by my count to download and install both the game itself and the DLC package. It literally took that long. And that's including the day one patch for the game, and that's including the, installing the disc, installing the game off of disc. It must have taken at least a grand total of 18 hours to get this game fully installed onto my Xbox One. In fact, actually, I had to install, and I acknowledge this, this game took up, with DLC, with game content itself, with Alan Wake's American Nightmare, you're talking about probably over about 130 or so gigabytes of installation data. I have a 500 gigabyte Xbox One. I had to install an external drive. I had to get an external. Thankfully, the Xbox One does support external USB 3 drives, and I actually did install one, and it works just fine. I was able to get it working, no problem. But that was something I had to deal with actually. So I installed the drive. It works. I started installing the games. It took, I basically couldn't play Quantum Break for at least a day after release, simply because I was waiting for that DLC package to finish downloading. But eventually it did, and I got to start playing the game. I think the game came out on a Tuesday morning. I ended up starting to play it on a Wednesday. And I actually streamed my initial reactions to playing it, basically just doing a blind playthrough of the game, that first act. And it's, if you guys want to know my initial thoughts about it without basically trying to spoil anything, I actually have it on my YouTube channel. So if you really want to look up, what was my initial reaction to playing Quantum Break, that first act, I do have a playthrough with video commentary on my YouTube channel. So I would recommend checking that out if you're interested. I stopped the stream because I didn't want to stream the whole game. Usually I kind of want to, unless it's a short game or like something episodic or something, usually I prefer to just do like a first act or a demo or something. I don't like to stream an entire game. And so I basically played the rest of it myself. And again, the game is pretty new. It came out last month. I don't really want to talk about it too much or spoil too much here, especially given the fact of how long this podcast has already gotten. But there were two things in particular I really want to give my 2 cents about. The first is the game's graphics and controls for the gameplay itself, basically the game's gameplay. And second, I want to talk about the TV series, again, without spoiling anything. So, how do I talk about the game's gameplay itself? Like I said before, this is probably one of my favorite Xbox exclusive title. And you don't get that just for having a great story. You get that for having a great gameplay, great graphics, great performance, and great story. And in this case, Quantum Break, delivered on every front. When I started playing this game, I was really frustrated watching some of the early preview streamers, and I mentioned this actually when I streamed the first act myself. I was really frustrated. I couldn't understand Microsoft's decision to offer preview copies to the people that they did, because some of the early streamers that I saw, and I didn't see all of them, and of course I did see Remedy's stream as well. Remedy obviously played it fine. But some of the streamers that they had playing these games looked like they had no idea what a controller even was. They were terrible. Even on low difficulties, they would not go more than a few minutes without constantly getting killed, because they simply just didn't know how to aim, it seemed. So so when I finally started picking up the game, I was overwhelmed by just how well I was able to play it. The control, and this is just to Remedy's credit, that they obviously did a really good job perfecting the game's controls, but I felt they were very intuitive. I felt sensitivity on the thumbsticks was great. I felt like movement was great. I felt like animation was great, and I loved the integration of the time powers. I really liked how Remedy did a very good job of making the user get comfortable with one style of gameplay and then sprinkling in new powers as the game progressed. That was amazing. That was perfect. That was the best way, I think, that you could get a player to become comfortable with your controls in your new type of gameplay. I was just enjoying, first it makes you, comfortable with running and gunning, and then you get the dash ability, and then you get the shield ability, and then you get the ability to freeze time, or somewhere in that order, and then you get the ability to cause incredible damage with time waves, and then you get the ability to move really fast, faster than the eye can see, and take enemies out that way. Great. I mean, I'm used to games like Max Payne. I'm used to games like Alan Wake and stuff like that, and I felt so at home just with those. I don't really play that many shooters anymore. I really don't. I haven't even had the chance to pick up the new Doom yet, although I have heard good things about it. I kind of waited on Doom. I may still pick that up. But I could not believe just how comfortable I felt with the gameplay. It felt like I was coming home. Basically, it felt like, wow, this is great. This is what I remember about gameplay. This is what I remember about control. This is what it made me want to get back in and play more. I just kept playing. I had a bit of the way I chose to play the game was in sections, basically. I did this intentionally because there were reports going on. I never experienced any personally, but there were reports going on since the game got released of people's getting their save games just wiped. That somehow the Xbox or the game was wiping their save games. It never happened to me, but I'm usually pretty good about how I save my games and stuff like that. Like I said, I come from a PC background. I'm used to playing PC games. And because of that, I always have to quit to, I don't just quit to desktop or shut off the console in the middle of a game, even if I think a checkpoint's been saved. I always make sure to quit back to the main menu and wait a minute for everything to sync up, and then I'll make sure to, close out of it and close the game before I shut off my system. That's just how I am, because I just didn't trust. I never trusted. I know Halo had this problem, and this was part of design where the checkpoints would only save if you actually quit properly. If you simply turned your game off, even after checkpoint save, it wouldn't save your checkpoints. You'd be back to where you started. And this is something that I made sure to do. I simply always quit out, and I never had a problem with losing my saves. I don't know what these people were. I don't know what these people who were losing their saves would do. Usually, if I try to say, usually if I said to them, I try to get some information out of them. I have tried to talk to people that have lost their games, but they're usually just on and on and on about how much they hate Remedy. You know, they're usually so blinded by how much they hate Remedy and how much they hate their Xbox or how much they hate Xbox. I don't know. You can't ever get actual information out of them about what they were doing when they lost their save. So it's impossible for anybody, let alone Remedy. I can't imagine how Remedy would be able to diagnose these things, because they said that they never caught it in testing. So I don't know, but I think with the new patch it's been cleared out. But anyways, I always made sure to quit out the game whenever there was basically I would always play in sections, and I always say how would I play these sections. Basically, I would always play like this. I'd always play an act. I'd play the junction, and then I'd watch the episode. And then after the episode concluded, I'd literally hit the main menu button, I'd quit out the game, and I'd close out. And then when I started playing again, I'd start at the beginning of the next act. And that's how I played. That's how I chose to play the game. The game has 5 acts, 4 episodes. And so I over the course of a week, I kind of spaced my timing out, I admit this, because I really just wanted the experience to stay with me. I wanted the experience to linger. I didn't want to just play it in one sitting and then just be done with it and never, I didn't want to do that. I have done that in the past. There have been games that I played through all in one sitting. Quake 4, I played through all in one sitting. I'm not saying I regret that or not, but yeah. I really wanted to let it just, I really wanted the time to basically process each act in each episode. So that's how I chose to play Quantum Break. Plus, I always felt like after the episode concluded with, it gave you a main menu button. I felt like that was like a logical break point. I always ended there. And so I made the decisions I wanted to make. And now I have to talk about the TV series. And again, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that might be interested in obviously playing the game themselves. And I don't think I spoiled anything with my previous statements. But and I probably will be doing a what was cut video in the future. Not this week because I'm busy this week, but maybe next week or the week after or something like that. I do have enough information that I can produce a what was cut video for Quantum Break. And I probably will do spoilers there. So if you're curious about spoilers for the game or what my thoughts are for spoilers, hold off until I produce my what was cut video. But this is basically what I felt about the TV series. I liked the TV series a lot. I enjoyed watching it. Now, that has nothing to do with the fact that I wasn't streaming it. I did have the files downloaded, so I had a consistent frame rate when I'm watching them. I had consistent picture quality. I have to give a couple of props right now to the actors, all the actors that they cast. Courtney Hope, obviously Sean Ashmore, Dominic Monaghan, I believe I'm pronouncing your name properly, Dominic, I'm not certain on who played William, Mimi Michaels, who played Fiona. I loved her. I don't know this guy. I don't know the actor's name. The guy who played Charlie. I thought that was a great. I had no idea that they used. I mean, I saw Charlie and I was thinking like, oh my God, that's me. So I'm sure other people might have their opinions or different opinions of Charlie, but without spoiling anything, you're free to whatever your opinions. But my opinions with Charlie are complex. And it does have, your choices do certainly impact Charlie. They do. They really do. So keep that in mind, that Charlie might be different if you made different decisions or made a specific decision differently. That may happen. So just be aware of that. And obviously, in fact, I gotta give props to this guy right now. Actually, Because if I don't, this guy may in fact kick my ass. He looks like he could easily kick my ass very easily. And Lance Reddick, oh my God, that guy scared the ever-loving hell out of me when I was playing Quantum Break. Now, I'm pretty certain Lance Reddick is a nice guy in real life. He has a Twitter feed. He retweeted me last night, and thank you again to Lance for that. But oh my God, he was terrifying in this game. And that is all I'll have to say about that. Please don't come to my house and kick my ass, Lance Reddick. I liked you. I like you a lot. This guy, I think this guy could literally rip me in half. Yeah. But no, he seems like a nice guy. First off, the production values were pretty much on par with any major new series that you'd see on Fox or on the CW or something like that. It had really good production values for a 4-episode television series just on its own. Brooke Nevin came back. I loved her playing Emily. The guy who played Liam Burke, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Amazing, did a great job. I mean, pretty much he was the star. This Burke guy, this Liam Burke guy, was pretty much the star of the TV series, and that's fine. That's really cool, actually. I thought they did a great job. The way it ended, if there was one disappointment that I had, it wasn't that the game only has one ending, and it does. No matter what your decisions are, the game will end the same no matter what. It's that they only did 4 episodes, and because of that, I kind of would have preferred, and again, you know, you're free to disagree with me on this one. I'm sure everybody has their own disagreement about this. I kind of would have preferred that there be an episode after Act 5. It would have been nice. Basically, the ending is delivered in the game itself through in-game CGI cutscenes. That's how the ending is delivered. And it is constant. No matter what choices you make, you will get the exact same ending. And there's a reason for that. There is an artistic reason for that. And that is to show that you can't alter the outcomes of time. Even if you think you can, things cannot be changed. Or at the very least, the same outcomes will go. No matter how many things play out differently, the overall ending will be the same. And I think that's fine. They're looking at this from a franchise perspective. If you're going to have this many changes and this many alterations, if you're going to do a sequel in the future or do a TV series in the future or something like that, then you have to have a consistent ending at the end. That's not to say that there are characters that could have lived or died differently. That all affects things. That, you know, there are characters that are not, you know, there are characters that can die in this game, and I won't say who, but there are characters that can die based upon your decisions in this game. They don't come back, as far as I know. I haven't seen them come back. So if you killed somebody in the game, they're gone. So there's still that. I don't know. There probably is, just based on my playthrough experience, there probably is a way to get through the game without anybody dying, but I can't be certain on that one. I think I'm pretty certain there is at least one way to get through it, but I haven't played the game this way. It's just my conjecture based upon what I've seen, based upon the outcomes and scenes that I've seen previously. So it would still be difficult for them to make a sequel, but, you know, knowing people's playthroughs, the game could look at your previous save, or you can make decisions based upon what happened, and, you know, there are plenty of options. You have options for if they ever decided to do a sequel. But I loved the live-action series. In fact, actually, I think Microsoft, if they really wanted to be cool, they could actually release this series on Netflix or something. Maybe they could cut it in a certain way that the decisions are you know, that they have a specific decision, or they bring in new scenes or something like that, or deleted scenes that we haven't seen, to give the game or to give a TV series like its own continuity separate from the games. Basically having outcomes that didn't originally happen. That would be amazing to see. I would love to see Microsoft or somebody else produce this series as or continue developing this as a live action television series. I normally will, for these podcasts, talk about what I think the future for these games actually hold, or for these franchises hold. It is a very distinct possibility that we could end up seeing a Quantum Break television series. I'm not saying that I have any insider information about this. I don't, but it would be certainly something that could be done. However, if they choose to do that, I really hope they don't go with any of the broadcast television networks here in the United States, because those would simply try to influence them and probably, I think like the Fox network, for example, would probably interfere, with creative differences and stuff like that, particularly the fact that, there's vulgar language in the games. If you put this show on, Fox, that would you couldn't have vulgar language because FCC and standards and practices and stuff like that. That's what I mean by that. You wouldn't be able, you wouldn't be able to. You would be limited basically by the broadcast standards here, which are limited by law. So it would be cool to see, like, let's say for example, Netflix or HBO or Showtime or somebody that wouldn't be, a network or a distribution platform that wouldn't, or Hulu, that wouldn't be limited by those standards, and you could, it would basically do hands off. Netflix, for example, I've heard, is very hands off. They will say, you can do the series you want to do the way you want to do it. We'll fund you, and we trust you. We know you, to do what we think. Otherwise, we would have worked with you in the first place. That's, I think, what this. If you were to do a Quantum Break series with no video game sequel or tie-in, that you would need to empower the creators to basically do whatever they wanted to do. And that's really what I'd like to see in the future. Obviously, Quantum Break 2, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, there's very little left open-ended. There are a couple of things left open-ended, but there are very few things left open-ended. I thought the Quantum Break's conclusion was satisfying. There might be some people that might not have been satisfied. They might want to think about what happens to this character, or what happens to this character, or I'd like to see more of this character. Fine. I'm not, that's your choice. I completely and utterly respect your opinions on that. For anybody who's played the game, I completely respect your opinion about that. This was just my own opinion. And, but I was satisfied with the ending. So if Remedy decides to work on something else, and I don't know, I just get a heavy vibe. Like, I think that Remedy wants to work on Alan Wake 2 next. I think I have that feeling. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not true. But, and if you go on my website, you'll see a very laundry list of reasons why I think Remedy might be wanting to Alan Wake 2 next. But and if they want to, that's fine too. So we don't know what the future has. Basically, this is it. We don't know what the future has in store for Quantum Break. However, I will say two more things finally. One is if you really want to see more of Quantum Break's story, if basically you want to see more and you can't wait for DLC or something like that, but you want to see more Quantum Break or more story involving the characters from Quantum Break, then I totally recommend, and I have been doing this for quite a while, this is nothing new, but I totally recommend checking out Cam Rogers' book, Quantum Break Zero State, because there's a lot of scenes in that book that are not included in the game, including some things that people have been requesting or wanted to hear more about, like the shifters, for example. That is definitely in the book, without spoiling anything. But yeah, they do talk about there is more. There is more story in the book, and having reviewed it and read it, I will recommend it to anybody who can't wait for DLC. And we don't even know if DLC is coming or not for, future, storyline or moments or something. We don't know. But in absence of that for right now, I would totally recommend checking out Cam Rogers' book, Quantum Break Zero State. The second thing I'd like to see was something that was kind of teased by Remedy during development of the game. It's not available, I don't think, but I really would like to see a Quantum Break companion app released for iPhone and Android, or in Windows Phone, obviously. I'm sure they probably have to put it out on Windows Phone too. Or where you could watch this series that you've unlocked on your smartphone or tablet. Like, you'd be able to stream that. That, I think, would be the perfect place to offer a streaming option for Quantum Break, for Quantum Break's TV series. I would love to be able to rewatch the series on my iPhone and or a friend's iPad, or I would prefer to do that basically. And that hopefully I'd like to see. I really would like to see that. I don't know what Remedy is working on next. I think maybe all eyes will be at E3 this year, but Remedy just finished Quantum Break. It's a little early, I think, for Remedy to say anything about what they'd be working on next, unless for DLC. I mean, if they're going to work on DLC next, then they could probably make the announcement. They could probably make that announcement. But I don't think. I just think it might be a bit too early for Remedy to announce what their next project would be. That said, I hope that somebody would get a chance to interview Remedy. At least to get a tease or something about maybe what they might be working on next or might be considering next. It'd be interesting to see at this point what they'd be interested in doing. So, those are my 2 cents. I'd like to thank you guys for watching this, or I should say listening to this podcast. I really appreciate all your support and comments and likes and views and everything. Obviously, this is not my longest podcast by a long shot. That will still be Pokemon, I'm sure, for the time being. But I do want to take this moment to wrap up this discussion by saying that my next podcast will be the next most requested podcast topic. It's going to be Commander Keen. That's going to be the next podcast topic for next time. So until next time, guys, please post a comment about future ideas you might have for future podcast topics. Thank you guys again for watching and for all your comments and likes. Until next time, guys, my name is Maniac. This is GameAccess.net. Take care, man. Over and out.